Okay, so here we go. Lesson number 9 in Maggio. Now, there are some trumpet studies out there that are um, renowned for being chops killers or really hard work or akin to lifting your max at weightlifting or running your fastest mile or longest distance, whatever it is. And I believe that this exercise is one of those that could very well be like that. But I want to talk about it very, very quickly into the first time that I came to it. The first time I came to it was probably towards the end of last year. So I was working through all the Maggio content for these lessons. And I'd always kind of gone on and looked at them and thought, oh, that's quite interesting. I got to lesson 9 and yeah, sure enough, it was time to play it. I didn't know what to do. There's not really a lot of instruction regarding lesson 9. So obviously, as usual, there'll be a PDF on the screen to go along with this video. And in terms of how to play the actual exercise, I've decided to play it in a way that makes sense to me in context of the Maggio lessons. So quickly go into that before I talk about the lesson. In reference to having a lower set, or maybe another way to qualify that or talk about that would be to have a relaxed set or an open set to play high. That's where I think lesson 9 comes from. I'm putting that into practice in terms of playing lower passages, moving to higher passages, etc. I've had a look online and I can't really find anything specific relating to the instruction of lesson 9. Now, if I find this between now and whenever this video goes live, or even later on, once these videos are long and done, I'll come back and revisit this. But here we go. Lesson 9, Maggio technique, sound in intervals. Okay, so here we go. A little preface, incidentally, at the top of every lesson. This one's sound in intervals. Number 1, precede this lesson with either warm-up C or D. I did warm-up C earlier on today. Use nose breath as indicated, so that's a little up arrow. You'll see that. Now this actually has this was written between every bar, certainly in the first 7 exercises. It implies it for the first 7 exercises. It doesn't seem to reiterate it later on, so we'll cross that once we come to it. Number 3, support interval change with air as well as syllable. Now, that's just reiterated here. I would say in respects to everything that we've been doing with Maggio, as we push through the syllable change and the oral cavity in terms of the space between our mouth and our tongue and the side of our cheeks, etc., that's always being manipulated because of what we're doing with our mouth and the syllables to change octave, etc. Not as much the aperture, don't forget that. It's not really here. We always want to be relaxed here. But trying to support the air as it pushes through and not blowing too hard, but pushing through that oral cavity, timed with the syllable, etc., should give us the correct airspeed that we desire for whatever range we're in. Okay, remember range, not dynamic. Keep lips together and relaxed. So this goes back to the gentle G's that we warm up with. So for me, when I play at the start of the day, even from a lead pipe buzz, so to speak, I always have the mouthpiece against my overture. Just lips gently relaxed together, breath in through the nose. And it's not about creating a sound. It's actually about creating a feeling of, I suppose, energy. You're waiting for this to speak to the airstream, okay? Just a wee second, quick pause, edit. Forgot to plug my camera back in. Okay, we're back. Yeah, so it's about just trying to wait for this to energize and blow through. And that relaxed position here, we will change that. We do change that as we go through all of our different styles of trumpet playing, music, etc. We have wider apertures, more closed apertures, depending on volume and articulations and everything else. It doesn't just all stay Richard. Everything's moving all the time. But in this lesson, Maggio specifically says, keep lips together and relax. So this relates to our nose breath, and not at any one point should be squeezing our lips together. It's essentially that's just going to cut off the airstream, make you see stars and pass out, okay? And stop the sound. So there's no metronome marking marked on this whatsoever. I have done this exercise before. In fact, not long after I did this exercise, I actually did this exercise with a tone generator. It was great. So once I've demonstrated the first line, you'll see that, or you'll hear that, we basically move through our C major scale. We descend and then ascend. So having a tone generator on, and obviously in this case it would just be C major in terms of the diatonic scale that we're working with here, but you could use any one whatsoever. And I'll put the link at the end of this lesson to the tone generator video that I did. It was good fun, and it's best with headphones on, or you switch all the lights off in your room, crank the stereo up if you can. You get some pretty trippy things going on with the sounds, and it's great for tuning as well. But it's a really good bit to zone out. Anyway, here we go. So in lesson 8, I referenced a tempo of 64 beats per minute that I used for the tonguing exercise. No reason why I can't use that again, so just get the metronome going. And this is really just so we have a musical point of context for moving between these intervals. Okay, so let's get the tempo going first. Back up to 64. Okay, so very briefly, we start off on our C. That becomes our center pitch for this first line of Maggio number 9. We descend down to the B, and then we play it again, but we ascend to the D. I'll demonstrate that, okay? And then it's a nose breath, and then you move on. Then it's a nose breath. So it is a contrary motion scale in terms of we always start off with a C, but we move down through intervals. In this case, we're going to go down to our pedal C. By the time we played our pedal C, when we come back and start the bar again, we are going up to our top C. So we're encompassing 2 octaves in each one of these bars. Sorry, at the end of each one of these lines. Now, like I said, I couldn't really find a lot of information regarding how this exercise should be played. Maybe there's more than one way to play it. If anyone's seen any of the Max Schlossberg interviews, I can't remember the name of the professor who's lecturing. He states that all the Max Schlossberg daily drills, etc., they should be interpreted differently by every player who they weren't written for, because they were written for different players. It's a fantastic. I'll put that link in the video as well. So the interpretation of these exercises could very well come down to what you need and what's going to work. Now, you could play it like this. Etc., and then start the line again and go back and ascend. That doesn't make sense to me the way it's written. So what we're going to do is, I think that's my 64 there. Yeah, quite close. I'm going to do the exercise. Okay, this will be line 1, lesson 9. Okay, so there's quite a lot in it. It's quite a big blow, in fact, in terms of moving the air. Now, one thing that I did there rather, was I tried to keep my nose breath in time. And I suppose if you're going to do that, then subdividing the note before you do the nose breath is going to help. You should be able to get enough air in an eighth note, or quaver if you're in the UK. So that would be ba, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then taking that nose breath in there. If you feel more comfortable of taking an extra little bit of time in your nose breath and then just carrying on to the next bar, don't see any problem with that either. The main thing is, I think you should really try and use this with a metronome. Again, at a slower tempo, okay? Initially, as well, it's like when we're diving down there, it really helps us lock in our scale, because we've got no point of reference in terms of moving down other than how well we know the scale. So this is quite a long blow. I'm going to do probably the whole exercise. I'm going to dip in and dip out and edit as normal. But here we go anyway. So this is D flat. Now there's 7 of these initial ones, and then the format slightly changes as usual when we get to the pedal C motif. A wee bit flat there as well. So just to interrupt myself, yeah, I cheated. Well, I didn't mean to cheat on the pedal F. I forgot what it was. Thought, is that a G flat? No, it's not. It's just an F. Anyway, so using the correct tongue syllable. So there we're going to T and the A down the bottom, obviously for the bottom D flat. We should be able to start steer the pitch as well with our air as well as our tongue. That doesn't necessarily mean blowing faster. It may actually blow softer, and that's going to help the pitch rise up. Because we're not blowing as hard, everything's going to be a little less open, and we're just going open in terms of low and flat, like from being a loud note, okay? It'll also help us control the pitch a little bit more, and maybe if we have to, do an embouchure change to help lift the pitch up a little bit. Then, because we're not blowing hard, then that should really, really help as well. Okay. Enough chat. Okay, so now we're at F sharp, and I don't know if this is a misprint in this one or a miscopying. However, we're at F sharp, and we don't appear to be doing the pedal motif. Anyway, so then we're going to carry on, just finish off this set. Okay, so and there we're recommending to take a 5-minute rest. Now, I think that the pedal motif should be there for the F sharp, because all the way through it has been, but also more than anything else, when we get to the F sharp area on all of the exercises, as far as I can remember, we are not accessing the pedal register. So I am literally just doing the exercise as is written, but I just thought I'd point that out. So where we are there now in the F sharp, I suppose the previous one as well in F, which is line 6, we're accessing our initial 4 syllable changes, and we won't get to the higher one, the sh, later on obviously, but within one exercise we're getting the option to move from ta to te, but within that we're doing ta and then ta e and then ta ta e ta ta e, etc. And the last one for the F sharp, going from the F sharp to the E sharp and the A sharp to the F sharp. So it's quite a lot to learn there. And what I feel about this as well is like you get a nice feeling for moving between all these intervals. It's like a really, really slow lip flexibility, which is another reason for focusing on the slower tempos and not taking these faster than they need be. One of my students, when we were going through some of the Maggio stuff, he says, why isn't this stuff faster? And I says, well, I suppose it can be. I didn't write this. I don't know. Unless there's a suggested tempo marking like in exercise 8. Then I suppose you could address these at any tempo that you want. The information on the page, these are written, you'll see this on the screen, these are written as minimums. So for me, that I would assume that even at a fairly brisk tempo of about 120, don't quote me on this, you're still moving quite slowly. Ba, ba, ba. So you're getting that feeling of taking the care to move between the intervals. Moving at a slower tempo is going to give you a little bit more focus for where you're going to. One of the biggest problems that we have in trumpets, obviously, or probably any brass instrument for that, it's when you have to move to a note on the same valve or no valve, but basically without tonguing either. So from a G to a G, and then how easy is it to do? We don't want to do that unless it's written. So learning the tongue positions as you ascend and move around, that's just part of being musical, but it's also really, really good training. It can help with our pitching, it can help with our tuning. It's really, really good to practice all this stuff slow, and there are numerous other exercises out there other than Maggio that can help us do that. The basic stamp warm-up as well is an absolutely fantastic way of really approaching these intervals, be it over a second or a third or an octave or a ninth or a tenth or whatever it is. There's loads of exercises out there. Stamp is good for that. This is another really, really good one, but it does get quite heavy later on, this one. So I've talked about 2 minutes through my 5-minute rest, so I'm going to take a little 5-minute break here, 3-minute break, come back in at lesson 8, okay, which will be slightly different. Okay, here we are back. Maggio lesson 9. So we're about to move on. We just had a 5-minute rest. We were doing a nice passages of our starting note. So we finish off on an F sharp, down to an F sharp, and then reiterate the F sharp, and then back up to an octave F sharp. So that was 2 octaves we were covering there. Oh yeah, something I didn't mention. When we play each one of these bars, like in the first 7 lines of exercise 9, lesson 9, when we go back to the beginning of the bar, so this was the start of exercise 7. Reiterating or rearticulating that F sharp or whatever the note is at the beginning of the bar, I think is intended. You shouldn't just be all slurred. There's no reason why it can't, but it's certainly there's no inference of that whatsoever. So we're moving on to line 8, or this next section of Maggio lesson 9. And we change the exercise ever so slightly. We do introduce the pedal C motif now. But what we also add in is our... Sorry, we don't add in. Just switching off. My amp was on there, so they might be humming all the way through the start of this. We try and get it out through compression or a noise gate. Anyway, I digress. We only go up the scale this way. So for this one is GA, GB, GC, GD, GE. Now, there's no reiteration of the nose breath here, so I think it makes sense to do one of 3 things. You have absolute carte blanche to do what you want, I suppose. Try and get through the whole exercise in one breath. Remember, we're trying to retain a slower tempo. Second option, breathe where you need to. Do you do it in time or do you do it not in time? Let's try that. Breathe after every bar is the third option. Let's try this. First one. Let's get a tempo check in. Using 64 beats per minute. Okay, here we go. Let's start this again. I was thinking about my tempo marking there and it was too fast. 2, 3, 4. Don't think we'll get through all this in one breath. Maybe we can. Okay, so let's do one where breathing where we want to, but let's keep it in time, okay? So halfway through is going to be around about the C or the D area. Certainly a little bit more comfortable. So I'm not even going to suggest breathing after every bar. It's very evidently not required, even at 64 beats per minute. Let's just hear that again. Oh yeah, I'm actually doing 128 beats per minute. That's probably why. Okay. Let's move on. We'll do A flat at that actual tempo. And we'll try one with breathing halfway through. So, I wonder, you're seeing this as it happens. Moving at the quicker tempo, which would have been 128 beats per minute, or staying at the 64 beats per minute. I'm going to stay at 64 beats per minute, even though I did the whole first section wrong. Not wrong, the wrong, the faster tempo. Right, anyway, so this is A. Yeah, definitely the slower tempo, I think. You know, there's some great exercises out there that look at moving throughout the register, like in lip flexibility. So Collins is the most famous one, obviously, but then there's aspects of the Schlossberg. We've already mentioned stamp. Even in Arbon, the octave drills and all the interval work in there, etc. There's numerous ways to approach this. Being able to move nice and fluently between intervals is quite often overlooked and just rushed at. So you can fly all over the instrument really, really quickly and nicely. How cleanly can you move between an octave or a second, etc., and the actual notes are like being pressed on a piano, you know? So I'm going to stick with 64 beats per minute as we move on. I can tell you one thing. Already starting to feel a bit of a burn here, okay? And all the way back down here. I know it's getting tired. I know we're getting a little bit of extra work when working back here. Anyway, so let's do a little table check again. That's our crotchet. Or quarter note. There we go. Oh, so they are just not getting the speed of the air up to the correct velocity, not properly concentrating and thinking about the note. A little bit of a mispitch. I was thinking about that tempo again. Okay. Maybe it should be faster because there's no reiteration of the nose breath. I don't know, but it's not written in there after the very, very first line. Right, so on to B now. Need to check this tempo again. Overcompensated. Right, okay. We're on to C. Yeah, not bad, not bad. Nice clean intervals. Okay, so the next one is C sharp, and after we do C sharp, we actually change the the format of what we're playing, I suppose. Okay, here we go. Cool. So, there's no break written here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to try something different. I'm just going to move the microphone over, get a little bit more of an embouchure shot. So I'm going to change the camera side of the microphone, and we'll come back in. I've got a little bit of a change anyway in terms of how the next section of lesson 10 proceeds. Okay, just give me a minute. Okay, so a little bit of a camera change there. I'll move the microphone over here so you'll be able to get a little bit of a side shot of the embouchure. And what we have got here now is we basically do a broken arpeggio, but we always return down to our starting note. So in this case, it's D, F sharp, D, A, D, D as we move up. And we move up all that way until we get to G, okay? Here we go. So obviously there's no need for a nose intake breath here other than after the pedal register. I like that we are moving slower because it gives me a chance to think about the pitch and where I'm going to. So that was E flat, up to E. Trying to think always about just the shape of the syllable that we're using. Not overthinking it as well. Just trying to think about blowing through, returning back down to a nice relaxed position. Always trying to be open, nice and free down here. Trying not to grip here as well. Trying to let the corners do the shape. Just let this part here respond to what's going on in terms of the shape of the tongue inside the mouth and the air that's coming up. Always remember we got a nice wee bit of support from down here as well. So this is F. F sharp next. Remember, trying to blow through, just blow through the embouchure, blow over the tongue, and not really let any of this get in the way. I know that's a really, really hard thing to hear, and it's a really hard thing to say as well because you're not always entirely sure that we're letting the correct information out in terms of, well, what do you mean? What I mean is like, if this centre part, so the actual aperture area here, if you squeeze that down, well, you could get air coming out the sides of your mouth. More than anything else, you're going to cut off the sound. You're going to make it sound sharp. You're going to sound flat, more than likely sharp. And you could get that kind of like choking in the throat where the air's got nowhere to go because you've closed off the only way out. Trying to let the tongue and the compression that you're feeling all the way around your body. It's not a lot. You don't have to really compress. I over compress so much. You don't have to compress that much. You're supporting this air coming out, trying to have a nice relaxed grip in the instrument. In theory, should let everything happen together at the same time where the air's moving at the correct speed out through the aperture, and we get the sound that we want, whatever range that is that we need to get. That was a bit waffly, sorry. Just try to waste time before going for the G. Oh, tuning was a wee bit all over the place there. I don't know if we should try that one again. No, we'll keep going. Thinking about so many things. Thinking about my mic position. Thinking about my air. Okay. Right, so now we change a little bit more. We go into straight arpeggio. So we've seen this arpeggio before. We're just basically ascending up now. We're going to start on the A flat, C, E flat, A flat. So we're starting on the A flat, obviously in a kind of T position before we are standing up towards this shh type scenario. We'll talk a little bit about that once we've done as far as we're going to go. So we're slurring all the way through here. So really all we're doing is practicing our tongue position for the upper register. My mic's gone over here. And when we're doing that, sorry, just a wee second. When we're doing that, what we want to try and make sure is that we're letting that tongue position happen. The actual manipulation of anything that's going on here should be minuscule. We're trying to thread the eye of the needle here in terms of the sound coming off of the air, I suppose, is a good way to think about it. Anyway, enough chat. This is A flat. Just died off a little bit at the end. I felt as though I gripped the trumpet a little bit, and just as I gripped the trumpet in my left hand, then the sound shut off. So a little bit of the extra tension where it wasn't needed was detrimental to the sound. Okay, so let's carry on. See what happens. We'll maybe have a couple of stabs at some of the higher ones. A. A wee bit flat there. I usually go for my A on first valve, and I thought I'll try 1 and 2 there. It kind of felt okay, but it was a little bit under pitch. I was also thinking about tempo. Let's just double check our tempo. Not bad, not bad. Okay, so we're going to go for B flat here. Not entirely sure that was a B flat. A little bit under pitch. So this is where, in my register, I kind of feel a natural ceiling. And I do like today, where the notes are kind of speaking, I can take a little bit more extra time up there. Maybe even mess around with the valves. See if I can get one to like pop up. If I'm feeling particularly good and strong again, I'm going to try and manipulate tiny aspects of what's going on with my tongue. It's not about being able to play like double high C's, which would be nice, and beyond. Remember, this is all about the consistency and the use of the register up to and including this area. But again, up to our E's and F's and G's and the quality of sound. Okay, so here we are. This is B or something like that. We'll see what happens. I kind of felt around the F sharp that was going to be a little bit squirrely and an A came out. Now, I'm going to try that again. I'm going to try a different valve combination. I'm going to try first. A little bit closer, and to me it feels as though the ability to support the shape of the embouchure. So by that I mean the forward, like it feels as though that's starting to just lose its finesse. I suppose is what's going to happen. That's the best way I'm trying to describe it. So we'll try one more on open. Try a B on open. Yeah, and that's it. So what that's actually happening there to me in terms of my embouchure, it feels as though I'm unable to properly control the aperture in a way to grip the airstream to create a sound, I suppose is the best way I can describe it. Now, I'm chuffed with that. There's no issues with that whatsoever. The work and the way up to there is still all relevant, and that's something to remember as well. I mean, I don't think I've ever had a super convincing B, maybe a B flat. A's have been good. And in terms of the grand scheme of things, remember it's not about range, it's about quality of sound. And if you can play up to your highest note, so let's say mine's is an A, and you can do that almost all night long, I mean, that's an achievement in itself. Thinking back to when I was really not doing that well, which is not that long ago in terms of professional career, and maybe like topping out at an F and struggling at that all night long, as opposed to now being able to manage a higher upper register and some jazz ability and playing throughout the range convincingly and hopefully in tune most of the time as well. That's an all-round win situation for me. There are so many other exercises out there that we can look into, and if you are still watching at the end of this video, once I've done 10 with one more to go, there is going to be a little synopsis, review, epilogue, whatever you want to call it, on the Maggio technique, etc. There might be some surprises in there. But also, I always want to say thanks again for watching. If you have got any comments, as always, please keep them constructive. Can be negative if you want, or positive, doesn't really matter. Just keep them clean, that's all I ask. I hope you enjoy the channel. It's been a little bit quiet for a while. A lot of changes going on. The scene in the UK, if you're watching from out of here, is still very, very much subdued in terms of the performing arts. Things are gradually opening up. Festivals are starting to open up, etc. So hopefully we will see each other out on the gig scene sooner rather than later. Let's, fingers crossed, have a nice, open and safe summer. And other than that, all I can say is stay smart and stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks very much. Bye bye.